we actually have some very, very good regulatory framework that has been put in place to try to increase investments in the off-grid energy sector. So very happy to really mention that it's such a pleasure to go to international conferences and actually do mention that when it comes to regulatory off-grid sector or regulatory framework are definitely doing a good job. Yes, can be improved as always, but we are leading the charge. Next slide, please. All right, so what does it take to actually bring transformative projects in the clean energy sector? There's a few things that we need to have in place. One is capacity building and technical assistance. So this at All-On, very specifically, happy to say that we provide what we call the All-On Hub. The hub is part of All-On that provides everything that you can imagine aside of direct financial investments. So think of any need of capacity building, financial modeling, marketing support, legal agreement support, anything that an entrepreneur or business might need to develop their project aside of direct investment, we provide. And that is very important because one thing that is very key for us at All-On is to make sure that we do not only support international companies, but quite the contrary, we also support local homegrown initiatives. So having this capacity building and technical assistance in place is a way for us to ensure that all local businesses are given the chance to actually compete, not only locally, but internationally with players. Then another thing that we absolutely need is innovative financing model. We have to find ways to de-risk investments. Ultimately, it's still a big issue in the sector. So at All-On, we've been putting together many innovative ways to think about it. I will not go into details, I wouldn't have the time, but please do look us up. We, for instance, have something that we call the Demand Aggregation Platform for Renewable Technology, a platform that has helped developers reduce their cost up to 30%, thanks to the innovative structuring that we put in place, and so many more. Again, 7 minutes too short, so let me skip. And then another thing that we do is market development and demand stimulation. It is so important to create awareness and demand for clean energy solutions because although we have now moved away from it, for way too long, there was still this narrative that, renewable is too expensive, solar is too expensive. It's not the case. The technology improvement over the last decades have actually helped bring the cost down drastically, tremendously. And it's important for us to ensure that this message is relayed to the population. Next slide, please. So yes, I've already told you about what we do, and in a nutshell, this is our mission. We're all about accelerating the closing of the access to energy gap in Nigeria by delivering access to commercial products to the unserved and underserved population in Nigeria. This is what we do and what we've been doing for the last 7 years, setting the tone for investment in the clean off-grid sector in Nigeria. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. So our approach, I've already told you about the hub, what we do there in terms of the capacity building. I've also talked to you about the impact investing. We are so fortunate because we have a very flexible instrument. We can do debt, we can do equity, and therefore we try to ensure that what we bring to the project is what is needed, not just what we are in a position to provide, but whatever a project requires. If it's debt, if it's more fitted for debt, we will provide it. If it's more fitted for equity, we will do so as well. And then I've spoken about the rest when it comes to the enabling finance as well. I really have to rush because of the time that is allowed. Obviously, we do a lot, but we do not do it alone. We actually could not deliver our work at the scale at which it needs to be delivered if it were not for the key partnerships that we have. So obviously, PPPs, public-private partnerships. Some of the projects that we work on, I've referenced earlier on the DART project, which is the, as I said, Demand Aggregation for Renewable Technology Platform, is so powerful because it's actually also building on one of the existing public programs that is done by the World Bank through the REA. So this is what is important for us, making sure that whatever we put in the market help other initiatives get to scale, be it public or private initiatives. Community engagement, obviously, it is key. I mentioned that our target is the unserved and underserved community. What we do is for them, so we have to do it with them as well. That is key to the success of our projects. And then obviously international organization. As I've mentioned, World Bank projects, African development projects. We are also a partner of the Global Energy Alliance for People and Planet. We have actually financing this DART project that I've mentioned. Next slide, please. Metrics, metrics, metrics. It's all about metrics. if we talk about impact, we need to know what exactly we want to impact. What is the change that we want to bring about? How transformative are we going to be? So for us at Olon, it is number one priority. We need to set clear metrics. We are clear metrics that we continuously monitor and evaluate, so that we can therefore, based on the lessons learned from the evaluation that we would have done, we can then scale the successful models. Next slide, please. So some notable highlights. As of today, Olon has already provided over 160,000 connections, therefore impacted over 800,000 lives. Almost 1 million lives already impacted since the beginning. Yes, 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 you can definitely clap. We are so happy about that. Let me go to the next slide, because again, I know my time is up. I see Daniel shuffling behind me. We're almost done. We've also launched the off-grid sector report, and we've also recently dedicated a grant of 395,000 to the Niger Delta. Again, talking about transformative change in different areas. Next slide. Please. Daniel, would you allow me 1 minute? A quick 1 minute video, because if it's about impact, let others say it better than us. Just 1 minute. Sound, please, for the video.
People across different walks of life.
We have a 60 kilowatt scalable mini-grid system here in Alaile Fuka community of Indori local government area in Ondo State, where we supply the community of Alaile Fuka a stable solar power, and they can attest to the benefit that it has brought to their businesses.
Solar light has helped us so greatly. We are really very grateful with the people who brought this into us, because we've been staying in darkness for all these years. And we thank God when they brought this thing, it was just like we were in heaven.
Before Kinto get a cool box solar freezer, normal freezer like Amukula Malu, and now the king always then. I'm on the generator. Láti bá tí mo ti get solar cool box freezer. Mi ò repo mọ́. Ẹni ọjà tó bá ti rọ̀ láti ọjà, mo máa gbé sínú cool box solar freezer. Ó máa jẹ́ kó block dáadáa, ó lè máa look more fresher.
Since the solar came into my community, we have been using it for charging our phone, for using our radio to hear music. We use it for pumping our boreholes. We have not been buying any fuel or currency to see life in our community. The solar light brought us life and enjoyment and happiness. Since it came to our hometown,
solar definitely a lot in my business. And now I'm not using Lista again because of the cost of the diesel, whatever else, that we are doing serious work that the Lista will play. But I don't know whether I'm not using Lista again. And solar is doing now. And solar is doing for me.
I was using the fridge. I was buying so really
live. And this is live.
All right. Thank you very much. I'll stop here. I won't even finish with the other slides, but I'll just say, why is this important in today's conversation? We're talking about the energy transition. We're talking about large-scale projects. Well, I'm happy to say that as of today, the markets, the countries, the governments have realized that off-grid is an essential part of us getting to scale. Vision 2030 is not only about main grid-connected renewable energy. It's also about ensuring that we have the off-grid community that develops in parallel, because it is essential to get everyone connected. We want to get to scale. Well, we need off-grid. It's a key part of the equation. And we do that by investing, but it goes way beyond the dollar. We think about technological innovation. We encourage entrepreneurship. This is why we are here today. This is why Olon is going to be delivering up to 2.5 million naira prize to students who have innovative projects, because innovation is also part of future. Let me stop here. More time during the Q&A. Thank you, everyone.
A big round of applause for Olon, for Caroline, the CEO of Olon. And yes, many thanks to Olon. Olon have been actively supporting NEF since 2018. So 6 years out of 9 years. And thank you very much for your strong support. Once again, a big round of applause for her. And so that's why we're probably giving her 6 extra minutes to celebrate one for each year. So thank you very much. A big round of applause for the Olon team. And now we're going from the off-grid debate to the big grid debate. But before we do that, I know we may have questions from the audience, burning questions. So if you could save your questions, we'll come back in a bit. Just save those questions for our keynote speakers. We'll come back to have a bit of interactive discussion. But before we do that, let's hear about the bigger grids, right? And we've got today one of Nigeria's biggest generation companies, really, the Niger Delta Power Holdings Company, represented here by Engineer Ifeanyi, the Executive Director of Networks, who will be transitioning us from the off-grid space to the on-grid space. Engineer Ifeanyi, please, a big round of applause for Engineer Ifeanyi, speaking on the Maximizing the Light Up Niger project. Thank you very much, sir. Your 7 minutes starts now.
Thank you. I thought I had 10 minutes. That's what I was told. And by the time I got here, everybody had pressed the protocol, the, what do you call it now? Because Caroline stood on it, Babalola stood on it, so I can't find the protocol list anymore. You know, it's amazing that we get here and the hall is half empty. Everyone said, the truth of the matter is that when we talk about serious issues in Nigeria, the hall is always full. I was at a party 2 days ago, and it took a long queue to even get to the venue of the party. But when we talk about something that affects all of our lives, people will hardly come there. But my task is to talk about the Nigerian Energy Forum on the issue of maximizing light up Nigeria projects, and to use the model that we have designed in Agbara. The Light Up project is principally aimed at delivering quality power to industries that require the power, albeit at a premium cost. It's not enough for the big industries to just have power. They need quality power. Some of the industries that we see, they cannot afford to have all of those voltage, imbalance, the harmonics, the frequency variations, all of the transients. So they need clean energy, and they need it 24/7. So the purpose of the Light Up project is to deliver this power to the industries. You know, and you know, in our homes, we really don't need that measure of clean power to run our AC, to run our fridge, refrigerators, and deep freezers. But these industries, once they have these variations, and you will see it when we proceed with the slide. So the strategy is to help our customers to use electrical power efficiently, to increase industrial productivity, and to lower environmental impact in a sustainable way. As you know, NDBC has 10 power plants. 7.5 of them are completed. We are generating about 4,000 megawatts. We are completing the Alauji combined cycle, and then we are also completing Omoku and Egbema. We've undertaken over 121 transmission lines and substations, and we have done expansion work on 36 numbers of TCN substations. We have constructed, well, that information says 374. I know that in the last 1 year or 2-3 years, we have done an additional almost 200 distribution substations all over the country. I'm not sure there's any local government in Nigeria that has not been touched by NDPC. Next slide, please. The Vice President, His Excellency, Senator Kashim Shettima launched this project in Agbara sometime on the 12th of October. And we intend to launch the same initiative in the other geopolitical zones of the country. What we do is to target the areas that have the industrial hubs and take them, away from the non-availability of power, so that you can have most of the other 5,000 megawatts that is being wheeled by TCN available to other customers. Now, we also have standard power, because out of the 4,000 that we generate, we can only put about 800, because all of this power that is generated by all of the power generating companies have to be shared in such a way that every power generating company has a bite. And of course, there's a scientific way that this is calculated. For instance, hydro and so on and so forth, they have priorities over companies like NDPHC. And then some of the companies like NDPHC is used to stabilize the grid so that you don't have this number of grid collapse all of the time. So our strategy is to partner with these companies in the sector, and this comes and with TCN as well, and it comes at a cost. Next slide, please. Now, to ensure that we can deliver, can you please expand this so that people can see? Clean power. What we do is to design various models that we use to eliminate some of these the problems that we have, voltage imbalance, harmonics, frequency, and we develop all of the systems that is peculiar to each industry. Now, in the process as well, because as I said, the TCN grid is about, is only able to take between, say, 5,000 to 6,000 to 7,000. But in the process, while we are installing additional structures for the end to supply the customers, we are also trying to improve the transmission capacity to the end users. What do we do? For instance, in some places, we've had to scale up the cables, replace the cables, to higher capacity cables without necessarily bringing down the whole system or constructing new lines. And this is easier for us. Next slide, please. So what we're doing is to ensure availability of power to customers, strong collaboration with stakeholders, TCN, and the end users to ensure that there's power availability to them. And then also we benefit from it because some of our turbines that are idle can come on. And then we also design power quality systems to ensure that what the end users have, these specific end users have, is clean power, so that the downtime for them is not more than 6 to 7 minutes at their end. Most of these companies that you have in Agbara, for instance, cannot afford to have longer period of downtime. So we design various systems, which you will see in the next slide. Oh, I'm sorry, this is not, go to the next slide, please. Next slide, please. Next slide. Next slide. I mean, these are just for technical things, but when you see, okay, this is some of the approach that we have. If you see no, go back, please. Go back one slide, please. Okay, if you see this slide before, you see the the one before this. You see the approach, and you see all of the you see the spikes, the frequency variation, the sags, the interruptions and the transient. But our system, which you see there, when you see it in the middle, what comes out on the other side is a more regular sine wave, which is has been filtered, and that's what we deliver to the end users. Next slide, please. That's you can see when where you have restoring technologies, you see that the sine wave at the other end is regular. It's not like what you have before. We have filtered it through our design, which is peculiar to each of the industries. Next slide, please. And that is the single line diagram of what I have just described. Go to the next slide. And also this one. The cost of this is borne by the customer, ourselves, and our partners. However, we also know that it is beneficial to the customer, because you can imagine some of these industries are not able to shut down at all. When they shut down, the cost of bringing back their machines is very, 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 very expensive for them. So it is better. And then because we produce more, we are able to pay our gas producers. Therefore, it's a win-win for everybody in the sector. Next slide, please. What are the benefits of the Light Up Nigeria project? Economic growth, increased access to electricity, reduced energy shortages, attraction of investment opportunities, because industries that are sure that they can have regular power supply will come to invest in these areas. Of course, it generates energy, and of course, it ensures energy security, regulatory oversight. It's easier for the regulatory authorities to ensure that customers can benefit from the regulations, and then of course you reduce budget deficits, and the opportunity costs are a bit higher. So that's the purpose of the Light Up Nigeria project. And NDPC is committed to ensuring that whatever is happening around us, I mean, we in Nigeria today, we don't talk about the underserved. Everybody is now underserved. Everybody, because there's nobody, even band A people have maybe 24 hours or 22 hours. Everybody is underserved. But everybody desires to have 24/7 power supply. So our desire is to fill the gap while also making our company to be more productive. Thank you very much.
A round of applause for Engineer Ifeoyedele, please. Thank you very much, sir, for those insights on the Light Up Nigeria project. I'm sure we have some burning questions. We've still got two more fantastic keynote speeches to come, but let's take 2 or 3 questions from the audience. I've got some here, but can we just, by show of hands, if you've got any questions for any of our panelists, just by show of hands. So just your name, your organization, and straight to your question. Any quick questions for any of our panelists? I'm very much interested in just double checking if we could have more mics as well. So just your name, organization, and question. Yes, please.
My name is Daniel Wumani, Darwana Development Foundation.
Yes, please.
SGP grantee.
Okay.
I think my question should go to the Honorable Minister.
Okay.
As observed by this lady from Channels TV,
Yes, please.
why are we still building refineries?
Okay.
Why the shift is towards renewable energy?
Okay. Why are we building refineries?
Are we
Still building refineries? Is that
why the shift?
okay?
is
So
towards
why are we
renewable?
investing in conventional technologies rather than transition into cleaner source solutions? So that's one question for the Honorable Minister's representative. Let's take any more questions so we can come back here together. I think we've got one question at the back. One question at the back. Let's take the second question, please. Just name organization. Let's take all the questions, then we respond once. Yes, please. Name organization and question.
Technologies.
Yes, please.
My question is to the Honorable Minister.
Okay.
As representative.
Okay.
It's on this 30G during your presentation or your address. On the slide, 30 gigawatts of electricity.
Correct.
To be by 2030.
Correct.
Maybe it's a vision.
Yes, please.
Then I saw 30% of renewable energy.
Okay.
It's good. And we hope that we'll be able to get 2030 is just 6
Correct. 6 years.
5 years to come.
Yes, please.
What is our present level of renewable energy?
Super.
I didn't hear anything about that.
So what's the current share?
Current of renewable energy when we are looking at 2030 that will soon be here.
Thank you very much,
So in
sir.
some place we will 2030 you will be shifted to 2040, 2050.
All right.
We have the present level.
Thank you, sir. We got the question, sir.
Thank you very
What's
much.
the share of renewables in the energy mix at the moment? Any more questions? Just one more. I'm keen to have a woman. Any question? An opportunity for a women? Okay, I can see a hand at the back. Yes, please. Name, organization, and question, and then we'll come back to respond. Okay. The mic is off.
My name is Stephanie, and I'm a guarantee for SGP.
Yes, please.
My question is to the CEO, Olan.
Okay.
How do communities that are very deprived benefit from this project?
Okay. How do deprived communities benefit from the project? Okay. So we've got 3 questions. Let's come back and respond, please. We've got maybe 30 seconds each to respond. Honorable Minister's representative, please.
Thank you for the wonderful questions. Yeah, the first question, if I can get it right, was asking about why are we still investing on gas power? Not to say why are we investing on refinery.
Correct.
Instead of renewable, I think that's exactly the question. Instead of investing more on renewable, we are talking of renewable energy transition. Why are we still building more gas power? Or we are see that? That's a very good question. And like you rightly say, we call it energy transition. That means that you must transit from somewhere. That means you must everywhere you must have something where you are before you go to where you intend to go again and to achieve. Yeah, if you look at basically when you are talking of gas power is not completely dirty. Actually, that's number one. They call it brown. We have green. I mean, we have a green energy there. We call gas more or less a brown energy. And if you look at the country as it is today, we don't have what we call a base load. Base load means that we must have a base load. Are you getting the point now? All this renewable energy we are talking about, yes, we are entrenching into it, and more is moving from alternative energy to the main energy now. But before we go to that, we must have a main energy. So, and at the same time, gas is safe. Okay. As you see it, the technology we are adopting now we are adopting a kind of clean gas system. Now, you find out that most of the time now, the NEC, the Nigeria Electric Regulatory Commission now, they are trying to say most of the new power plants that are coming out, it has to be a form of combined cycle, whereby when you are talking of a combined cycle, it means that you are doing what you call heat recovery system. The energy that is coming from the gas will now channel it to a boiler that will boil the steam. And the steam itself is what? It's a form of clean energy because it's from water. So to answer that question, yes, both of them have to go in pari passu because the fact is that we have not yet achieved our base load. So before we can transit to net zero, we must have at least the fundamental energy to be able to give to our people.
Super.
So that's one.
So I think that addresses it. Base load as we transition to cleaner sources. I think we had another question for the Honorable Minister.
Yeah, the second question is talking about fission. That's you are talking about our government policy on fission 30-30. That means that by year 2030, by year 2030, that you said 6 years to come. That's true. And by year 2020, we must have 30 gigawatts. That means you are talking of 30,000 megawatts power. And out of these 30,000, that means that 30% of that must come from the renewable energy.
Okay.
Now, we are not talking about what is our present
share of renewable.
Our share of renewable energy into the whole level overall energy mix.
Correct.
That's a very good question. You are very correct. But the thing is that now, basically, number one, we have a project we call Energy Support Program under and sponsored by the GIZ. That's the German partner.
Correct.
So, and before, if you look at the renewable energy space, it's difficult to track because every individual now, even from your respective home, everybody have different solar systems installed. Just the same way, it's difficult for it's now there's a project on that already to be able to track. So now with the help of our German partner, so we are developing a software whereby it will be easier for us to track all the private sector. Most of this renewable energy before is being driven by most of the time private sector, private people.
Correct.
If you look at it this way, and some of these people, in most cases, the people that are supposed to, the Energy Commission of Nigeria, actually, they are the ones that are supposed to at least be using to track this kind of, because Energy Commission of Nigeria, they are in charge of policy of this overall energy mix in the country. So, but at the same time, when we know that is a problem, we have a target. Now, this is now government now decided, okay, fine. Now, this is a serious problem. We have to exactly know what we have now to be able to determine what is going to be the share in 2030. So there is a project ongoing now already to be able to track all the individual. But from the government side, yes, we can track because this is a government project. We have different projects on the renewable. Talk of hydro, talk of solar, different solar project. Talk of renewable, even talk of the NHPDC.
Okay.
So we have the capacity, we have we can tell you, okay, this is what we have, but that cannot tell you the overall country
installed capacity
of renewable energy. We can only say hypothetically.
Okay.
Most of anybody that says this is exact what we have now is being
estimated.
Correct. You understand now? But of course, right now we are developing, the government is developing track that, but by the end of the year, we're supposed to have an average or estimated of our energy share.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We go to the CEO of Olon. While we are taking the response from the CEO of Olon, I've got a question for Engineer Ifeyedele. I'm interested in understanding that the premium cost of that premium power. It'll be interesting to understand maybe by what factor does it compare to maybe band A tariffs, for example? Is it 2 times of band A? Is it 1.5 times for this Light of Nigeria project? It'd be interesting to understand that, but let's take the response of the CEO of Olon first.
Thank you for the question. I believe it was specifically with regards to communities that have zero access to energy. Do they actually get to benefit from our project? This was a very brief snapshot of the impact documentary that you had the opportunity of seeing, but I will definitely invite you to please check it out. It's there's a longer version where you will see that you have communities that indeed, prior to Olon funded projects had zero access to energy sources, electricity sources. So yes, we do ensure that our projects reach out to the unserved populations. We obviously have extensive processes with regards to selecting the different localities. We go through the required ESIS, environmental, social impact assessment, and so on. But what drives us is indeed bringing electricity where it's needed and where it doesn't exist. But what drives us is not only bringing an energy source. It's not just about lighting out a light bulb. What drives us, it's also about how transformative is this energy. To us, it's a second part of the question. So yes, we bring access to an energy source, but what can they do with that? So we are increasingly focused on what we call productive uses of energy, because ultimately this is what we want. We want to have transformational impact. So we look at ways that the electricity we provide is going to go much further than just lighting out the bulb. Lighting the bulb is step one. But now what do we produce? What do we help those communities produce so that ultimately it's all about revenue generation, economic development, and therefore long-term impact.
Super. Thank you very much, Ma. Engineer for Yedele, please. Premium power at what cost? Is it at any cost or at all costs?
Like I said, you know, it depends on the customer and their needs. Some customers need us to do certain improvement in the distribution, some in the transmission.
Okay.
But at the end of it all, it balances out.
Okay.
Because if you have steady, I mean, it's like what we have in our homes.
Correct.
You know, if you have steady power supply, I mean, look, even band A people that are complaining,
correct,
they cannot jettison having steady power supply to the rigors of carrying diesel
correct,
all over the places, maintaining
own
generators and so on
correct,
and so forth. So the cost is dependent on the customer, where it is located, its actual needs, and then what we need to do to ensure that clean power supply is delivered to them.
correct.
How much resistance their system can take.
Okay.
You know, and in support of what the Honorable Minister said, the truth of the matter is that the 30-30 is achievable. And right now, a lot of organizations are, in fact, I believe that we probably have surpassed the 30% now, you know, of the mix. However, like you said, the issue is tracking and ensuring that, and it's also important to note that once we get to that level, excess power generated from most of these renewable energy can be put on the national grid, like it's done in other countries.
Correct.
So that everybody, I mean, they can also resell to the national grid. So once we get through this level, yes, 6 years seems to be slow, but in the last the TCN, I'm sure that we have almost gotten to 10,000 megawatts now with the improvement and the new contracts that have been awarded, you know, recently.
Great.
And production now is about 18,000 megawatts in Nigeria right now.
Correct. Thank you very much, sir.
The availability is about 18,000 megawatts in Nigeria now.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
Thank you so much. I think the Honorable Minister representative is going to make some input into that point. Yes.
Like my director have just said, about the energy, I mean, on-grid system.
Correct.
You know, there's no time to be, because our Mr. Speaker only gave us 7 minutes to talk. So there are quite a lot of initiatives. So, sir, it's a wonderful concern that's about achieving 30%. In fact, like my director said, it's possible you might have, hypothetically, you might have even surpassed 30%. But apart from that, let even say that we have not even reached or close whatever it is. That's quite a number of government initiatives that is going on. Quite numbers, because there's no time for us to mention. Private initiatives and government even initiatives take for example from the government initiative now. I will not talk of NEPDC now. NEPDC also, they have signed like 2 MOU already to do, one is 500 megawatts by Skipper, 500 megawatt of solar.
Interesting.
And they are even what how they call it? Project support agreement have been signed already. In fact, it's now in this, there are another one, some power. Some power. With US government, support by US government, USID. We are talking of, yeah, about close to also 1,000 megawatts.
Okay.
Which ongoing. We are also what they call gigawatt, 1 gigawatt. Supported by AFT, that's the African France Alliance.
Okay.
Expression of interest is already out for the consultant. So, trying all those things together, and even from the Ministry of Power also, we have different programs energizing public building program, mini grid of 1 megawatt, 2 megawatt we have done.
Okay.
So we are doing one now this year in ASCOM, 2 megawatts of solar. It's already on the procurement process.
Okay.
So you can see what's going on in this space. So we are going to that 30% is achievable.
Okay, thank you very much. No, those are very interesting insights, and I'm sure it'll be interesting to see how all of these different initiatives come together. And very pleased to also learn that there's this transition to connecting the renewable sources into the grid, which I believe is going to be very beneficial, both to the energy transition goals and also to delivering steady power to our people and our businesses. I'm sure we'll go some more interesting keynote speakers to come, so we'll come back to the questions after the next round of the keynote speakers. Let's go over to somewhere in, I believe, Lagos State, where we'll be joining with the representative of the UNDP's deputy resident representative in Nigeria, who will be speaking to us on upscaling sustainable development and industrialization. That's Mr. Muyiwa Odele, represented by Mr. Muyiwa Odele, the team leader for the environment unit at UNDP Nigeria. Can we have Mr. Muyiwa Odele, please?
Good morning, colleagues. Can you hear me?
Okay. Mr. Muyiwa, can you hear us, sir?
I can hear you. Can you hear me? I can see.
Hi, Mr. Muyiwa.
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Okay. All right. So, Mr. Muyiwa, please get ready. We'll come to you. And while we're sorting out, okay, we have Mr. Muyiwa. Hello, Mr. Muyiwa.
Hi, how are you? Congratulations. Can I go ahead? Can you hear me?
Okay. So, we'll come back to, we can see you, but we can't hear you yet. So let's come back, sir. Give us another 7 minutes. And before we exhaust that, we would have resolved the audio. Can you hear us? Not yet. Okay, we'll come back to it just in a bit. And while we sort that out, let's welcome the representative of the Afri-Exim Bank president, Peter Olono, the head of client relations and Anglo-West Africa at the Afri-Exim Bank, who will be speaking to us on financing, industrialization, and export development. You agree with me that all of the initiatives and technologies we've discussed today need something to drive it. It needs finance. So let's hear from the financiers how we can deliver this. Peter, over to you, please. It's a round of applause for Peter as he takes the podium.
Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Standing on the existing protocol, and it's a pleasure to be here. And it's been very interesting listening to the engagement as to how to power Nigeria. In the course of my presentation, I will be providing more of a Pan-African context because the bank that I work for is owned by 51 African governments, the African Export-Import Bank, which was basically created to, can we have the slide on, please? Which was created to essentially promote intra and extra African trade. And of course, in the process of trying to promote intra and extra African trade, energy is critical because, as we often say, Nigeria is not going to sell cocoa to Ghana, and neither will Ghana sell cocoa to Nigeria. But if there is finished products like chocolates, Nigeria may buy, right? It is finished and processed goods that drive trade and not raw materials. And so, can we have the next slide, please? Basically, this is a quick profile of the bank. We're here last year at the Nigerian Energy Forum, and where we provided a context of the bank. It's a trade bank that was created under the auspices of the African Development Bank to promote intra and extra-African trade. We have 52 of the 54 African countries as member states today. I sit in the office in Abuja with my colleague Zainab, who is also here. In the Anglophone West Africa office, we have an office in Cote d'Ivoire, in Harare, Kampala, Yaoundé, and in Cairo in Egypt, basically covering the entire continent. The bank is it's a $30 billion bank. And in Nigeria today, I would perhaps say very boldly that we finance at least 70% of whatever is happening in Nigeria. I think we easily finance almost all the Nigerian banks. We finance the Central Bank, Nexim, Bank of Industry, and maybe in the course of the slide, you will see the work we are doing to promote energy, to promote industrialization, to promote processing value addition to primary commodities, and to ensure that Nigeria is truly a giant and can take its pride of place in the Committee of Nations. Can we have the next slide, please? The next slide basically speaks to how we intervene. Today, we usually do not want to call it that we're a bank because we're a development finance institution, and the role of the bank is to help intervene in critical sectors, especially where there's gap in financing. So we're not essentially profit-driven. We want to cure the gaps where the Nigerian banks, the local financial institutions are not able to cover by giving them lines of credit and helping to cure that gap and that deficit, because that was what the bank was created to do. So we do trade finance, we do lines of credit, we do note purchase, direct financing for projects that qualify. We do asset-based lending for oil and gas upstream projects. We do project-related finance across power, manufacturing, fertilizer, refinery, pharmaceuticals. Can we have this minimized? I don't know. Just in different ways to ensure that we can, so you see, we do power, ports, telecom, mining, manufacturing, diverse sectors, maritime, railways, airlines. And as I go, we have 2 aircrafts in Arik Air. We have a few aircrafts in Ethiopian Airlines, a few aircrafts that we have financed in Kenya Airlines. But as I go, I will have a slide that basically speaks to the core of today, which is basically revolving around industrialization and energy. Can we have the next slide, please? The bank works on the 5-year strategy. The current strategy that we're working on is to promote intra-African trade and the implementation of the African Continental Free Trade Agreement, because we have realized that Africa is a block of 1.8 billion people. That's a huge market that has to be mined and ensure that Africans can trade amongst themselves. As most of us know, when Russia dropped the bomb in Ukraine, you know, before then, I can, if we do a show of hands here, how many people knew where Ukraine was on the map of the world? I'm sure very few people knew where Ukraine was. But there's nobody here that it has not felt the impact of the Russian-Ukraine crisis, either from the cost of bread, flour, and all that. And the question we are asking ourselves in Afrexim Bank is that, and our president would like to say a word, he will say, why would Europe sneeze and Africa will catch malaria? They are too far away from us for us to be impacted by the geoeconomic or geopolitical tensions that happen there. The reason is because Africa is not trading with itself. Ethiopia, South Sudan, these are huge countries that produce a lot of flour, but there are linkages, the trade connectivity between the countries is not there. So we now have to go to Europe. If I want to travel today from Nigeria to Chad, I am better off going from Nigeria to France and from Paris to Chad. It's far faster for me. If I want to go to Gambia today, I will fly from Lagos to Lomé. The plane will stop in Accra, Accra to Monrovia, Monrovia to Banjul.
That's the number of stops you will fly between Nigeria and Gambia. But if we look at it, there's a Brussels flight that leaves Belgium every day that comes to Banjul and goes back directly. So you begin to ask yourself, what does Africa need to do? And that is what Freximark is trying to promote. And we also realize, as I said earlier, that Africa will not trade primary commodities with itself. We will buy textile, finished goods, shoes, right? Engineering, electronics. That is what we need as African countries. So the second pillar you see is industrialization and export development, which is the core of what I'm going to be speaking on. Leadership and in trade banking, in global trade banking, as I mentioned, today we have roughly about $8 billion of exposure in Nigeria to Zenith Bank, First Bank. So the liquidity, of course, you've seen that there's been a dollar crunch. So we keep giving these banks lines of credit. We confirm their LCs to ensure that the banks can continue to remain the wheel of progress and to provide a much needed liquidity for the banking system and, of course, financial sustainability. Can we go to the next slide? So essentially, under the industrialization and export manufacturing pillar, I've mentioned export development, we finance industrialization, and our key priority sectors are, we are promoting the development of industrial parks, because we want to ensure that Africa has capacity to produce and manufacture and export and generate dollars, because that is the only way that the dollar today will not go to 1,400, tomorrow it goes to 1,800, because we're hugely import dependent. So there's so much naira chasing dollars, whereas in other nations, they are having so much dollars that there's some countries today that if you have dollar in your account, they charge you for holding dollars. That's a negative interest rate. So they don't even reward you for it because they have excess supply. But just very quickly, in the interest of time, next slide, as I've mentioned, we do export development, and these are the roles to promote both soft and hard infrastructure, connectivity. We're developing the Pan-African payment system to ensure that trade can happen through more easily across African countries. The next slide, which is the part. Next slide, please. Yes, right. No, go backwards. So as I mentioned, under financial industrialization, we provide guarantees, we provide direct liquidity, and to ensure that we can promote key projects on the continent. Next slide. You can see Daniel looking at me on the left eye. I'm not sure when I'm running out of time very quickly. But this, yes. The key priority sectors we have focused on industrialization are agro-processing, cashew nuts processing, because we have realized that there's a huge demand for cashew in Vietnam, in India, in Asia. Cocoa, we want to process cocoa into cocoa liquor, cocoa butter, cocoa to ensure that we can export. And as a testament to, this room is half empty, but I just want to encourage Daniel and the team to continue to try. This time last year, I came here, that was the same feeling I had. My engineer was here last year, I recall seeing him. But you know what? I originated one transaction here. I met one of the panelists, Mr. John Alamu, who is the CEO of John Vance in Ileluji. This is the biggest cocoa processing factory in Nigeria. By the grace of God, before the end of this coming quarter, we would have approved a $40 million line to enable them to buy cocoa from the farmers and process the cocoa for exports to other parts of Africa, of Europe. If that's the only thing we got, that's a big win for Nigeria, and because that is the biggest cocoa processing factory in Nigeria today. So that basically underscores the work we are doing. Manufacturing, as I've mentioned, we also services, which we also realize that is critical. We're financing. Next slide, please. So under the industrial parks, these are basically examples of different industrial parks we have worked on and are currently in progress. There's one in Gabon, there's one in Cote d'Ivoire, there's one in Abia State. I don't know whether how many of us have heard of the Eyimba Economic City. It's a huge industrial park that has been built there. And of course, the reason why it's there is because if you know, the 191 megawatt plant by Geometric, which we financed and brought on stream towards the end of last year, so that the access to power can help promote, as we always say, Japan of Africa, right? That's what we call that axis. And then in Togo, can we go to the next slide, please? One of the things we have realized in the bid of industrialization is that when we export our goods, We have a high rejection rate across the OECD countries in Europe and in the Americas. So Afrexim Bank had to one step backwards in a bid to solve this problem. We have built a very big quality assurance center. It's called the African Quality Assurance Center. It's along the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway with Bureau Veritas as our technical partner, and where we are now able to test goods. You wouldn't believe that most of the shea butter cocoa samples had to be sent to now in South Africa, Morocco, and in Egypt before they can be accepted into some countries. And what will happen is that when our producers here export these goods, send these samples for testing, of course, before it gets on the plane, the packaging, by the time it gets to the lab, the acid content, the pH, the alkalinity, all those have been distorted. So they will return the samples. And that was what led the bank to building this. As a bank, we have no business with building a laboratory, but we have realized that if we are truly going to help promote industrialization, we need to go backwards. And these are the rules. And I believe, Daniel, you use this platform to push the government to realize that there are some backward things that need to be done. No, please, before you move to the next slide. And in furtherance, we commissioned the one in Ogun State in 2022. And by June 2024, that was just barely a month ago, we have done a groundbreaking of another lab in Imo State, which was all over the media on the 5th of June, basically to ensure that these labs, there can be at least 4 in all the geographical coverage of the country to ensure that we can move and promote industrialization and export manufacturing. And if we go to the next slide, you'll see the case studies of industrialization. We've highlighted some key projects that Afrexim Bank has financed in promoting energy and energizing industrialization and financing industrialization in Nigeria specifically. Dangote Refinery, today we are the single largest lender on that refinery, the refinery and the fertilizer plant, with total financing of $2.6 billion from 2018 till date. We have approved the $1 billion line. I'm sure you've seen in the media. Dangote is not able to access crude to fire the refinery. We have just approved the $1 billion line to enable the company access crude and buy crude and pay for the crude, because until Nigeria is energy coming from VI to the mainland today, all the traffic spots we encountered was because there was a fuel queue at a fuel station. These are things that should not happen to one of perhaps Africa's biggest oil producer. We have the geometric power plant, which I mentioned earlier, the Pacific Energy Plant. I'm sure engineer knows of this, which we financed for the Olorunshogun and the Omoto Show. There's the Ajebandele one coming on now, which is about 1,200 megawatt plant, also in Ondo State. The Azikel refinery, I know there was somebody in the audience that said we should not be financing refineries anymore, but the response was apt. You have to have a base before you can now say a fertilizer plant cannot be powered on solar today. That's the reality. So when you have some on-grid, it must be for us as Afrexim Bank, we say that energy transition must be just. My auntie in Kaba, in Kogi State, who is still reading with a lantern, cannot be bothered how she gets electricity. She just wants access to power. We are not going to have billions of scoops of gas under the ground, and we will not monetize it as a continent. So all we are saying is that if Africa has not contributed in an enormous proportion to the energy issues, to the climate issues, let us be allowed to gradually transit and give our people power, raise the standard of living for our people. And then finally, these are just the other slides which we mentioned, but essentially the aim of today is to ensure that Afrexim Bank remains committed to driving sustainable industrialization. We recognize that energy power is critical, and we are financing power, financing all the ancillary infrastructure that is required to develop power. We are providing project preparation facilities to individuals who want to do power projects and need money to even do the studies. We realize that a lot of those projects are not presented to us in a bankable manner. We are able to give up to $3 million per project for studies, so that you do your technical, commercial, and I'm sure the CEO of All1 will attest that those are the key ingredients to determining bankability. Well, thank you very much for your time.
Round of applause to International Development Bankers from the Afrexim Bank. And just like you say, it depends on whether you want to see the cup as half full or half empty. We see here as it's even it's full to the brim. I mean, just from a room like this over 12 months ago, we now hear of what's going to become a $40 million landmark deal for supporting our agro-processors in Nigeria. And our target for this year from this small room is to go above and beyond that. Probably this time next year, we will be celebrating double or triple of that figure from the deals that will be originated hopefully from here today. So while we come back to the questions, let's go over to Mr. Muiwa, who's joining us virtually to speak to the UNDP's view, so the global perspective now on upscaling sustainable development and industrialization. Mr. Muiwa, your 7 minutes starts now.
Thank you very much. Congratulations to you. I bring you warm greetings from Madam Elsie, the resident representative of UNDP. I can hear you. Can you hear me?
It appears you're on mute, sir.
No, I'm not on
mute.
Yes.
We can hear you now.
Great.
Okay, thank you.
All right. So I bring you warm greetings from Madam Elsie. She's the resident representative of UNDP in Nigeria, and also our sincere apologies for not being able to join today's forum, especially as today's event coincides with the formal launch of UNDP's Center of Excellence Timbuktu initiative. What we have done is designate Lagos as a host of Africa's FinTech hub in recognition of the huge potential of Nigeria and the innovation ecosystem that is existing here. Let me then use this opportunity, of course, to encourage participants at this forum to engage with the new FinTech Timbuktu hub in Lagos, and also be ready to join the emerging cohorts of innovators that will be based on the call that will be issuing shortly. The entire idea is to try to mobilize ideas, mobilize capital from both private sector, public sector, for resolving Africa's complex energy and development challenges. As we all know, unlocking Nigeria's potential requires reliable, affordable, equitable access to sustainable energy to be able to fully unlock its economic and industrial potentials. Affordable, renewable, and access to sustainable energy, as we all know, and we are, based on some of the earlier speakers' comments, is the lifeline for Nigeria's full economic transformation and is critical for unleashing our vast industrial development potential, especially in the areas of manufacturing, transport, agriculture, digital economies, and also boosting regional and international trade from the last remark that we just had now. Nigeria, despite having a large GDP, still has its industrial sector lagging due to limited electricity access, with only about 56% of the population having access to electricity, with well over 90 million people still underserved, and that with increasing unstable system that forces businesses and households to invest in costly off-grid generation backup systems. We see that there's quite a journey ahead of the country, but I see opportunities, just like one of the speakers said. Additionally, the electricity transmission and distribution system is requiring to be strengthened, especially leveraging innovative solutions such as artificial intelligence for analysis, distribution, and consumption patterns. It will also balance the need for social services and those of heavy industrial users to ensure that there is vital economic industrial establishment with access to the energy that they require to be able to drive productivity and profitability. At UNDP, we are currently working with key stakeholders, including the federal government, state governments, private sector, and investors, to roll out the implementation of the new Electricity Act 2023 through a very robust program that will deliver the critical components that are needed to strengthen the country's energy access while putting in place practical strategies for a just, orderly energy transition that recognizes Nigeria's unique characteristics.
It appears we lost the audio.
The UNDP Powering Nigerian and Investment Facility is emerging from UNDP's 10 years experience in the energy sector. Through initiatives such as the Small Grants Program, we build the capacities of local communities around clean cooking initiatives. We are currently working with the Rural Electrification Agency to roll out the Africa Mini Grid Program.
I'm not sure if you can hear us, sir. It appears we lost the audio connection.
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
No, sir. All right. So we'll return back to the studio in a bit, just so we resolve the technical issues. But yes, I think we had some very interesting insights from the investment perspective. Can we sort of check if we've got any quick questions to speak to the points we've had around investments, financing, industrialization for growth? Any quick questions from our audience? This time I'm looking for hands that have not asked us a question. So I've got number one. Can I have any more show of hands? One question. I can see another hand at the back. Two. So just before we return back to the studio. Number one, please. Your name, your organization, and the question, please. Thank you. Just in the... Yes, please. Audio? Yes, please. Okay. Now. Yes, please.
My name is Jones, and I'm representing Emergence of Jeff.
All right.
Now, I want to ask the speaker, under the slide that talks about key priority sector. I'm interested in the agro-processing. And it seems we have limited options on where you are interested in channeling resources for sustainability, because I saw cashew. I saw cocoa.
Correct.
I still think we have to go beyond that, because what Jeff does, and through some of these organizations, they work with the grassroots, and then there are far more products that pass the scale, the upscaling, talk about improving the livelihood of the community, than some of what we have here. And one of them is these tea danilo leaves. We've been exposed to it, and it's because of our exposure with this community-based initiative that we're able to know the value of this leaf. Imagine this leaf we used to talk about, used to wrap. So my question is, what informs
the choice of
for this because we should have gone beyond these now.
Thank you very much. Let's go to the back. What informs the choice of the priority commodities of interest? Next. The next question. We'll just take all the questions once, and then we can have our panelists respond. Yes, sir, your name, organization, and question, please.
Thank you very much. My name is Dr. Edem Enian.
Yes, please.
I'm a professor from the University of Uyo, a grantee of the SGP Nigeria.
Yes, please.
My question is, there are so many opportunities that I've listened to the woman that spoke about all on, and even this present presentation. My worry is that there are also opportunities for partnership and collaborations out there in Europe and America. And then, are we doing anything to link up these opportunities with the foreign partners that have investment money to bring into Nigeria? Thank you.
Partnerships. How it dealing with partnerships. Okay, let's have a balanced view. I think we have a woman here. So please, a woman in the front. Name, organization, and question. Yes, please.
the country director for Solar System Nigeria,
Super.
one of the grantees of the SGBJEF program.
Super.
So my question is to the Afrexim Bank. What structures do you have for SMEs in the country and generally, women-led SMEs?
Okay. All right. So 3 questions in all. What are we doing on the commodities? How do we select the choice of commodities? How do we partner? How do we interface with SMEs? So over to you, sir.
Thank you very much. For the commodities, what we have done, as I mentioned, I would like you not to see me as a Nigerian, even though my name is Peter Lonan is seated here. I work for a Pan-African bank owned by 51 African countries. So what the bank has done is to look at each country and determine the area of comparative advantage. What are the most competitive sectors? What are the sectors that are the most structured? So today, cashew, cocoa, shea butter, sesame are the most structured based on our research and our analysis in Nigeria. So basically, we go to each country, determine the cash crop, which has structures, collateral management system, transport, processing, detailing, so that the farmers, there's already maybe a structured outgrower scheme, so that if you put a warehouse in a single location, there are already structures where there can be aggregation and mass. And importantly, where there is already an export markets like Vietnam, India, they want Nigerian cashew because of the acid content. So where we're sure that once we finance, they can easily buy and bring dollars into the country. But I also want you to remember that Nigeria has a bank called the Nigerian Export-Import Bank. I work for the African Export-Import Bank. So the Nigerian Export-Import Bank may be the right bank, or is the right bank that should go further downstream into to basically now grow those value chains for some other product they are talking about, so that when they then qualify into like a global value chain for export, we then step in and help grow that mass so that the country can feel the impact. The Bank of Industry, just pay attention to the news. You will see that there's a new financing that is coming up. It's a $1 billion euro financing that should close anytime from now. Those are lines of credit that we put together for BOI so that they can go further in country to those smaller sectors that may not have been identified to promote them. So that's the answer to the first one. For partnerships, when I was talking about the share, at least for us as Afrexim Bank, we're talking around the shareholding structure of Afrexim. Today, the Afrexim has 4 categories of shareholders. Category A, which is the African governments. Category B, which is the African financial institutions. Category C, which is the international financial institutions, because we recognize that we need the partnership with these international bodies who have the liquidity and want to invest in Africa, but do not know the continent, but want to route it through a homegrown African bank. So we have the China Export-Import Bank as a shareholder. We have the Russian Export-Import Bank as a shareholder. The Indian Exim, they have given us a $600 million line, which we in turn took from them to finance the Indian content on the Dangote refinery. But they only want you to use their money for projects where you are buying goods from their country, capital equipment from their country. So indeed, partnership is critical if we want to achieve. They say if you want to run far, you go. If you want to run fast, you go alone. If you want to run far, you go together with other people. So that is how we run the model. For the SMEs, just last week, Zainab, I think it was on Thursday in Abuja, was the International SME Day, which with Smedan and all. I was on that panel as well. So we have what we've also done, because of the size of the bank. Like, for example, our minimum loan size in Nigeria is $20 million. To give to one customer. That's the minimum, because we are not supposed to compete with the Nigerian banks and eat into their space. So what we do for SMEs is that we also give lines of credit. So if you have a viable business, I'm happy to speak to you, and I would direct you to the financial institutions whom FCMB today has benefited from a $75 million SME financing program for women, youth development, so those kind of lines of credit, we will send you there, unless they can show us overarching evidence as to how you are not qualified. But just to let you also know, part of the financing also includes education, packaging to ensure that you then become qualified. So we've done with FCMB and Fidelity Bank. These are banks that have benefited from the SME financing program. So we do that, but we have to go through banks because they are closer on ground. They will perhaps have a branch behind your house. They can wake up in the morning to come and check. Before I move from, maybe I'm in Ghana, Liberia, Sierra Leone, before I come, so that's the model we use for risk management and ensuring that the right impact on our money is not lost. I think those are the three questions.
There was also, thank you so much.
Please go ahead.
There was also, I think, a question specifically to Olon with regards to partnerships. The list is actually quite long. Maybe I'll just give you one very specific example of how we definitely make sure that our funds are catalytic and bring more funds into the country. The program that I mentioned earlier, the demand aggregation for renewable technology platform, we started it with an investment of 5 million with our partner who also brought in 5 million, the Rockefeller Foundation at the time. And the program was so impactful. The program brought about such tangible, transformational impacts that we were able to actually catalyze and leverage and bring more international funds. We then had a partnership with the Global Energy Alliance for People and Planet, who brought in 15 million USD into this program. So just one very clear, tangible example of how we do partnerships and how we ensure that all funds bring more funds into the sector. Thank you.
Very much. No, I think, financing makes a huge difference. And that's why we would like to, I think, ensure we make a good, focus on financing today. And before we close this session, we would like to demonstrate to us, we would like to take everyone on a tour of the farm, of an agro-industry project, again, which we would like to showcase to everyone. So if we're ready, I know the representative of the CEO of JB Farms is here with us today. They will be coming in shortly just to speak to us briefly about accelerating oil palm processing and agro-industry. And I'm sure we've heard from the bankers just now that edible oils are one of the big focal areas for the Afrexim Bank. So can we go on a tour of the farm just to quickly see what we've got at JB Farms in terms of agro-industrialization? Just so I think 5 minutes or 3 minutes. Can we have audio, please? And then after that, we welcome the representative of JB Farms CEO just to make a big remark about the company. Okay, can we get back on the farm tour? Are we ready? Okay, there's some technical glitches there. So this was how we went on the farm tour to the cocoa farm last year, and then we came back with about $40 million. So we want to go to the